Hey everyone, I'm Johan and I'm a bear maker. And this is Orson and he's a cat most of the time. And you're watching Go Ahead and Make Me. That's not your toy. That's not for you.
Go ahead and make me.
How is everyone? I hope you're okay and that you and your family are all safe and sound and healthy. Yeah, we're still in the middle of difficult times, let's say. And let's all just hope we'll get back to normal as soon as possible. This episode, I'm gonna just have one project for you. It's a cap, and it's a newsboy cap, or as some people say, baker's boy cap. I'm not sure what the difference is. I think UK people say baker's boy, and US people say newsboy. I prefer newsboy because to me it evokes more one of those kids in old movies that are, you know, selling papers on the corner of the street. I came to this because on the Great British Sewing Bee, the last episode of last week, they were making these with a pattern. Was one of the challenges. And I thought, and I had actually, by coincidence, I had just made a flat cap myself in the same week. Which is similar to this, but it doesn't have the separate compartments. And so they had that on the show, and I thought, oh, okay, I'll try my hand at that as well. I didn't get any pattern, and I just watched what they were doing, and I thought, okay, I'll try to make a pattern myself, and then try it out. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, I might adjust it to make it work. But luckily enough, it pretty much went well in the first try. I just drew a pattern of the separate pieces that make up the hat. I must say most of the things that I've seen, most of the hats, they either have 6 of these compartments, sections I should say, I suppose, either 6 or 8. Now 6 seemed too little to me, and 8 a bit too much because it might make the cap a bit too bulky. So I thought, you know what, I'll try 7. And it actually came out really well. As you can see, this cap, I'm really happy with it. It was my first attempt. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. You know, especially for a pattern that I drew myself. I'm going to share the pattern with you and also the instructions of how I think you should put it together. First, the thing I want to start with is show you the kind of materials that you can use to make this cap. As you can guess, you probably need a sturdy kind of material. You can't just use any kind of cotton or, you know, fabric that you have lying around. The best type of fabric to use is this kind of twill, I think it's called, or tweed. It's pretty thick, it's sturdy, it can withstand the weather, I suppose. That's a good one. Another good option would be denim, any kind of denim. This one has a pattern on it, but you could use any denim, I suppose. This one is a fake suede, or a faux suede, I suppose. It's not very giving in any direction, you know, it doesn't have any stretch. And that, actually I can show you, the bear here has one. His cap is made out of that. And it's a bit more stiff than the other caps, and also a bit more stiff than I would like. It's not my favorite, but you can, you know, it's totally an option. Yeah, then you get all kinds of plaid. I personally love this one, pink with black. I think it's beautiful, I think it's fantastic. You could use that. And of course, then you have, for instance, ribbed fabrics. This one is purple. It's a bit more daring than I suppose the brown one. But even between these, there's differences because this brown one is much thinner than the purple one. So I think your best option is always to go with the thickest one. But then again, not too thick that you're going to have trouble putting it through your machine. Another material that I also used was this one. Yeah, this one I liked a lot, but it's a bit more flouncy, I suppose. It's a bit more roomy than the one that I made first. Yeah, it's all about preference, I suppose. You're gonna need that material, and you're gonna need some material for the interior, for the lining. For that, you just use something that's soft and thin. Yeah, you could, here I used this type of material. It's up to you, I suppose. As long as it's not just as thick as the upper material, because then your cap could become a bit too stiff, and you don't want that. I'm going to give you the pattern pieces. They're just this and this, and you're going to have to cut this one out 7 times. And then this one, this is of course the visor. You're gonna have to cut that one out twice. And besides those 2 materials, it would be a good idea to also line the thick fabric with some interfacing. Here I've got some iron-on interfacing, and you cut, after you've cut out the main parts, 7 of them in this case, you can iron on these pieces, the interfacing. I cut them slightly smaller than the main pieces so that you can easily still sew around the margin, so that it's just to make it a bit more stiff and a bit more sturdy. So that's the first thing you do. You just cut out these 7 pieces, and then you iron on the interfacing. So let's do that first. So I've ironed on the interfacing on all 7 panels. So now we're ready to sew them all together. I'll tell you 2 things about that. The best way to go about it is to sew them together in pairs. So here's 2, of course, good sides facing each other, and there's 2, and there's 2, and then you have the final single one. The best way to do this is to sew from the top where the interfacing starts. I'll just show it a bit closer. That the point where the interfacing starts with, that's where you start sewing. And then you just follow it just outside the interfacing. And you make 3 pairs like that, and then you have 1 left. And then you assemble the whole thing. But first let's start putting the pairs together on the machine. We'll use a margin of about 1/2 centimeter. Maybe 7 millimeters, something like that. I recommend that you don't go too fast on your machine, because you have to follow along the curve, and it's good to not have too much speed, because then it might become uneven. This is a good pace. So you have plenty of opportunity to turn the material when you need to. Always do a few back stitches. There we go. So now it's a question of attaching the individual pairs that you've made to each other. So these two, you will just, again, good sides facing, and just do the same. And because you've started not all the way at the top of the material, but at the point where the interfacing starts, they should all meet up at that point, and you'll get a nice even point. So let's attach them to each other. Here we have the 3 pairs of panels attached to each other, so these are the 6. As you can see, the point is very neat and centered, because we took care to stop sewing at the point where the interfacing starts. So all we do now is insert the 7th and the last panel. Also, I forgot to tell you, I should have said that before, I'm using grey thread because, of course, with this material it's good to match the thread to the material. I don't always do that. I don't think it's always necessary, but in this case I think it'll add to the neatness of the hat. So yeah, that's why we're using grey now. Now all the panels have been assembled, and as you can see, it's pretty neat. All the panels are the same size. You have to sort of push out the seams a little bit, because otherwise they tend to cave in. You probably will have noticed also that these caps tend to have a fabric covered button on them, and these are not easy to make. On the show, on the Great British Sewing Bee, they had these special little ringlets that they pushed into the button. I couldn't find them anywhere near me, so I probably should have had them ordered online, but I thought if I'm doing that, then this tutorial is going to take weeks before I can film it, just because of this button. And I actually found a little shortcut, or a little cheater's cut, I should say, for making this. And because I'm a bear maker, I often have cuddly toy eyes and or noses, and that's actually what this is. I simply covered a plastic, I think it was a nose, or was it an eye? I'm not sure. It was a black eye, that's it. A black plastic eye, and I just covered it with the material, and then used it as I would an eye on a toy. Same principle. So it looks good, it looks great, even up close, you see. So that's what we're going to do. I'll show you how. So here's the trick. I'm taking a teddy bear eye, or in this case I suppose it's more of a cat eye, and a circle of fabric, of the same fabric of the hat, of the cap. The idea is to cover the eye with the fabric, and in order to do that I have to create a kind of a little cover for the eye, and I'll do that by stitching all around the circle. There. So I've now in fact created a little cover that you can pull tight. So we insert the eye like so, then we pull the thread so that the fabric closes around the eye, or at least it's supposed to. It's not working right now. There we go. It's a bit fiddly, but it's doable, because the the eye is very slippery. And then, you see it's now covered. And then we stitch around to secure the fabric. You see I'm securing the fabric with stitches back and forth around the plastic eye. See, and then you end up with a perfectly covered plastic eye, which looks like the real thing. So now to attach the covered button we just made, we're going to attach on the other side this piece that came with the eye to secure it. Let me just show you properly. You have to use some force, and that's the sound that you want to hear. That means that it's attached properly. And look, there we are. Perfectly acceptable covered button. Okay, now let's go to the inner lining. Now the process of making the inner lining is pretty much identical to the one we've already made for the outer part of the cap. You take your second material, and once again you cut out 7 of these shapes, and once again you attach them 2 by 2, so 1 pair, 2 pair, 3 pairs, and the 7th. So it's the same process, you just attach them the exact same way as we did before. And ta-da! Here we have the insert, the lining for the cap. You could just wear it by itself as, I suppose, a fashion statement. Yeah, maybe not. I'll just show you how to put it in. It's as simple as you can imagine. You just match every panel for every panel, and just to secure it, put a little pin in each panel. So there we are. The lining has been put into place. And now we go on to the slightly trickier part, which is the visor. But don't be intimidated, it's a step-by-step thing, and it's not that difficult. The one thing you're going to need, though, I don't think I mentioned it before, to keep the visor stiff, you have to insert plastic, a piece of plastic. Now, this plastic I bought, this is sheets that are specially made to cut out patterns. Most of you won't have it lying around, I suppose. What you can use is the type of, you know how they have these hard plastic tab pages for ringed folders, you know, with the different colors and the different tabs. That's the kind of plastic that is, and that's perfect for this. I mean, you don't want to put in anything that's softer than this, because it really needs to be rigid. And here we have the 2 pieces of the visor. Yeah, you just put them on top of each other, and then with a margin of about 1/2 centimeter, you just attach them on the outer circle. Again, I wouldn't go too fast with this, because you have to do a lot of adjusting to follow the circle. It's not a circle, it's a curve. There we go. Now we turn it inside out. Let me just get rid of the thread. Turn it inside out. Now it can get a bit slippery and slidey inside there because both the material and of course the plastic are a bit slippery. And there's your visor. Make sure to push out the seam. You can use a blunt object. I don't have anything right now, I don't think. So I'm just using my fingers. But you could use like a chopstick or whatever. So there it is. Now we insert the plastic insert. We insert the insert. And now I would definitely secure it with some pins. And make sure that also when you feel it, that there's enough space left in here for a margin, for that same ½ centimeter margin. You don't want the plastic to reach all the way to the edge, because you can't sew through it. I mean, maybe some machines can, but I certainly do not recommend it. So once you've got the plastic insert in place, we're going to attach the visor to the cap, and we're not going to just place it randomly. Of course, we're going to try to do it neatly. So the best way to do it, because you have 7 panels in this case, is to align the visor with one of the panels right in the middle, like so. You would attach it like that, so that it's properly aligned in the middle. And I'll just pin it to the rim of the hat. Make sure that all the edges are aligned, which is very important because, oh, that pin had broken. That's not good. It's important for all the edges to line up, because let me see if this is even enough. Yeah, I'm happy with that, because we're going to do a band around all of this, and it has to encompass all of these layers. So yeah, they all have to be aligned up perfectly. So there we are. Now the visor is attached with pins, at least, to the cap. And now we're going to go into the last and final, yeah, that's the same thing, isn't it? The last phase, which is covering up all these raw edges with a nice neat little band. Now for the band, you cut yourself a strip of fabric, of the same fabric as the cap, of course, and then with your trusty mini iron, like I have here, or your irregular iron, that's fine too, you fold it in half and make sure that it has a good strong fold in the middle, like so. Just give it a bit more. You can use an iron with steam, of course. I'm not sure if that's a good idea with this fabric. So maybe you should just, if you're using a normal iron, maybe you should turn off the steam. Now here's the probably trickiest part of it all. Attaching the band to the hat. Here we have that strip of material that we just cut and that we just folded in on itself, right? Now, starting in the very back of the cap, meaning the opposite of where the visor is, the back of the cap, here we are. This is where we first attach this band. I'll show you up close that I folded it in on itself once more. So after folding it on itself here, I fold it in on itself once again like so on both sides, as you can probably tell now. You can probably see it properly. See, and this is what it's supposed to look like in the end. It's hard to tell because it's all the same material, so it's a bit camouflaged, I suppose. Yeah, so this doubled piece of fabric will actually become even thinner when you fold it in on itself. And that's what we are going to attach all around the rim. And so as we go along, I'll show you how. As we go along, we keep folding this piece in on itself, like so. You see, here, and then on this side as well. And then between these two pieces, you take the edge of the cap so that it covers the cap on both sides without any raw edges. The best way to do it is to first do that on one side and then fold this over on itself and fold it over again on the cap, on the actual cap, so that you get this lovely neat edge. Then when you've pinned the band all around the cap, this is what it's supposed to look like. You can tell it's been folded over on the insides as well as the outsides. As you can tell, held together with the pins. Now of course this is the time to put it under the machine and attach the band. As you can imagine, you have to be even more careful than before with sewing, and so you have to do it at a very slow and patient pace. So now that you've sewn the band on, that's it. That's your cap. All done. Now before I go, there's a few people I'd like to thank, a few fellow YouTubers in fact. The first one of those is Stephen Bland of Bland Designs. He also goes by the name of the Idiot Quilter, which is a complete misnomer because he actually knows an awful lot about quilting and everything that has to do with quilting and sewing, and especially about machinery. He and his partner, they've got lots of machines and they know everything about them. They talk about what are you doing? Check out his channel. I will put the link in the description below. He also does live chats at times, which is more a free form type of video where you can interact and talk to him, and it's not just about sewing, it's also about current affairs and everything that just he happens to be thinking about. Yeah, so definitely check him out. He also did a very nice review of my channel in his last episode, and that was very much appreciated. Thank you, Stephen. The second people I have to thank are the Fiber Hustle guys. Now, I always thank them in the end credits. but this time they mentioned my channel and a tutorial for the bags that I did last time. And so thank you guys, I love you. If you don't know of them, which, where have you been? If you don't know them, then please check them out. Again, link will be in the description. Thanks, Aaron and Chip. The third person is Stuart from the Woolpatch in the UK. He mentioned, because he has a review show of the Great British Sewing Bee. It's very entertaining. It's the way they talk about the past episode of that week. And he knew that I was making these caps, and he put up a picture of my first cap that I made on the Woolpatch. And he actually got the ball rolling for this tutorial. So thanks very much, Stuart. Again, link in the description. That's it for me and little Orson for now. Please watch again. Next time it's going to be koala themed. So if you're even remotely into koalas, just come and watch us, and we'll have lots of goodies and tutorials and what have you. And yeah, just tune in. All right, thanks for watching. See ya.